Hi, everyone, and as always, welcome to the Tales to Inspire podcast. I'm your host, Krish Patel, and as always, thank you so much for being part of this inspirational movement. We have so many things going on, whether it's one of our workshops, whether it's our live events, whether it's you want to find out more about our book that we have on sale and you can get on our website, or obviously you want to know more about our tales that we do. There's so much that you can get involved with. So today we have a really special guest, Lisa Askem. Now, Lisa goes through her journey. It's really special. It's so many ups and so many downs. One of motherhood, one of being a wife, and one of just not always knowing where the future holds. She talks about how losing her family is difficult at so many stages, and actually not knowing where life is going to head is actually part of the beauty of it. She's got a really great spirit. I absolutely love this conversation with her, and I know you will too. So I hope you enjoy. Lisa Askem, welcome to the Tales to Inspire podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. So before we get in, I guess at the very beginning, I may as well ask you to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and we'll just go from there, really.
Okay, so my name is Lisa. I'm a yoga teacher. I've been teaching yoga for 30 years. Then come from a design background, worked in fashion for quite a long time. Eventually, the paths kind of merged. I did one more than the other. I live in London. I've been here for decades. I'm a northerner, really. I'm from Leeds. I think none of us really lose our true identity. But you know, London's pretty much my home city. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we can really jump into the beginning of this. So if you want to tell us what it was like growing up as a kid, brothers, sisters, family background, do you have lots of money, no money? Like how did it all work and what was it from the beginning?
Okay, so wow, I was kind of born into a bit of a rabble, really. I had both my parents have sadly passed away now, but we were fun, chaotic, yeah, kind of that crazy. We were kind of known as the party family, the party house. It was, you know, my parents were young, so my mum had. I'm the youngest of three. Got two older brothers, and she had me when she was 22. So she, you know, it was with her first marriage that didn't work out. So she was kind of a young divorcee in her 30s with three children, sort of single parent, which back in those days was kind of unheard of. And she was great, you know, she's just loads of fun. She's lots of fun. Yeah. So I used to hanker after what I would call a normal mum, you know, someone who just, but you know, she worked, you know, she was working, she worked hard. She remarried the mum we call our stepdad. Remake, yeah. He kind of really brought a magic carpet into our world and swooped us off on crazy adventures, and it was a lot of fun, really. You know, looking back, you know, it's never perfect, but you know, my brothers and I were very close in age, so we were just always fighting. You know, it's just one fight after another. The teen years were great.
As a child, in that childhood age, what were your dreams? What did you want to be?
Oh, to leave home. Like,
Really?
in my head, I was always somewhere else. Some people call that a survivor's sort of strategy. Yeah, I always wanted to live in London. Always. Could not imagine myself living anywhere else. And I think that's the thing about dreams, really, isn't it? And people talk about, you know, manifesting the future and, you know, like make your dream a reality. And I guess I've always kind of done that. So when I did make that move to London, to me, it was the most normal thing to do. It really wasn't a big deal. It's where I wanted to be in my heart. And I've always been really creative. So I was always making the clothes for my dolls, loved playing, always very much in my head, imagining all kinds of things. So no surprise I went into fashion. You know, somebody sort of took me to one side when I was about 15 and said, have you thought about going to art school? And I went to look at the art school. Absolutely, this is where I want to be. Yeah. So yeah, and again, I was very much in my own world, really, bit of a dreamer.
I love it. I love it. So tell me a little bit about, you talked about art school and why you loved it, and where does your journey go from there?
So art school was, we're talking about the sort of late 70s, early 80s. I mean, they were good times. It was fun. I was very much the sort of, came from a little group of punks, say little group of punks in our village. We were kind of anarchists, and I still am. I think anarchy is not a bad thing. It's full of kind people who want to do good in the world, and we just want government to sort stuff out so we can get on with dreaming and have doing good in different ways. So I'm kind of very much established in that, kind of fighting for my causes. We had to, fight for even to go to college, really, fight for a future in the days. I was telling my kids they should fight. The Sex Pistols poster on the wall for years. That was anarchy in the UK, and my kids would say, "What does that mean?" It's like you need to remember you have to fight for the things that you want for your dreams. They're not going to just fall in your lap. It's not a given that you have this easy life. So for me, it was that. Yeah, I love that. I guess it's very left wing, isn't it? It's very like students having power in those days. We had we felt we were unheard, and we created a voice. I did that through fashion. Other people did it in other ways. I loved the attitude of an art school. I love that the constant criticism. It really does sort of make you work hard. You have to look at yourself constantly. My son he's just gone through an art school, sort of an art degree. And he sort of went, "Oh God, if I have to do anything on identity again, I'm going to go mad. I hate it, just hate it." And I thought it's quite interesting for a generation that seems to be obsessed with self and identity. They don't actually want to do the work that goes deeper into drawing that sense of self out of them. So might have gone on a bit there, but I loved that time. I loved my late teens and early 20s. Yeah.
I think it's really special when you get to reminisce on certain parts of your life. It's kind of, I struggle sometimes doing this, and I actually love it, is I live those moments. It makes me regress to where that time, and I can't differentiate then and now. And I love it because I'm still part of it. That memory lives forever.
Well, I don't think it ever leaves you, does it? Because when, like I'm obviously a lot older now, and when people say, like you ask an old person, what's it like getting older? You're like, well, I'm still 20 in my heart. I'm still that kid. I'm still that little child who likes to dream and make stuff. That sense of self and essence doesn't go away.
And I think that's where the term "grow up" or be an adult or have responsibility. Do you know when people we just? So I don't know why we do it, but it's definitely something that we do, and it kind of desensitizes the fact that still exists within us. That child is still there within us, and those we like living. And I'm going way off piece here. This is great. I love it. Is we have so many different versions of ourselves up until this moment.
Yeah,
and it's beautiful. It's great. I love it. Yeah, so cool. Where does we're talking about your early 20s, teens, fashion design. What happens next?
Well, I guess I moved to London. I love traveling, so I was traveling a lot with my job, which was great, but it's still a job. You're just in another country doing the same job. And then at some point in that mix, I got married.
How did you meet your partner?
It's really fun. We met at a party, joint sort of mutual friends. I worked for a fashion company that were based just off Marylebone Road, and he worked for Madame Tussauds at the time. He's a mold maker. So, and I lived with my cousin who had a place on Chiltern Street, which is in Marylebone. So it's like our life was in Marylebone, which is like super cool. You can say that to people now, they're like, wow. But back in that time in the 80s in London, wasn't like it is now. I mean, that was still a bit of a niche area to be in, but so we were together for a long time. We got this. He lived in what we call one up from a squat, which was this super cheap sort of artist's studio, really. Then I moved in with him, and we paid like £7 a week each, because we split everything, of course, to live in Fulham. And we lived there for about 4 years. We had a great time. We got married. Then we decided to buy a property in London, and then at some point have children. In that thing, we then had our daughter to start with. And they were great times. That transition to becoming a parent and being at home with a small child, that was for me hard. I didn't know the area that I lived in, because I never lived there. I went to work and went out, and we were in nightclubs all the time. It was a big adjustment being a mum.
What is it that's so hard about being a mum or being a parent in general? Because we get told that live a proper life, get a good school, get a job, earn as much money as you can so you can have a family. That's kind of the script that we all go along. So why is it such a difficult thing to grasp?
I think for me, I didn't think it through. I don't know if anybody does. I have no regrets. Don't get me wrong. I have absolutely no regrets about it. But yeah, I mean, nothing prepares you for the time when you literally have no freedom any longer. You've got responsibilities. You can't just go to the shop without taking a pushchair, which is impossible to get inside the shop. I'm talking about just your basic freedoms just disintegrate overnight. I mean, there was no such thing as yummy mummies then. There were no cafes for babies. There was very little support for mums, and none of my friends had children. Very, very few of them from my college days and my designer days have had kids. So I didn't really have. It was quite lonely. I knew lots of people, but they weren't my people. They were from jobs that I'd never heard of, like in the city. And I'm like, what's the city? what is that phrase? And what does it mean? And nobody could define it to me. They just said, oh, I work in the city. I'm like, where's that?
Yeah, and I get it completely. I get it, and I'm just because I've not been there and things, but it's so interesting how parenthood can be so up and down, and it can be so glorified as well. It can be so glorified with the fact that it's beautiful, it's amazing, but I think we forget the tough bits. My sister's currently got her firstborn, and she is sleeping hardly not at all, and.
It's torture. It's a form of torture. You lose your liberties, and you're deprived of sleep.
We're not selling it. But anyone listening, we're not selling parenthood very well at all.
Every germ that they get, you get twice as bad. You never get. The first year you're just full of cold and can barely breathe. It's like it's endless. It's just endless.
What about? So I know that your journey, being a mother and going through that and being a wife as well, came to an end, didn't it? After your last child that you had.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, things end. They end for all kinds of. Marriages, relationships break up for all kinds of reasons. But we'd been together for a long time. It just, that's just the way it went. He was working away a lot. Abroad, like going traveling with Madame Tussauds. They had a traveling exhibition, so he was like going all over the world and setting up these exhibitions, and we were spending more and more time apart, really. And I was just doing absolutely everything on my own and trying to balance a I worked for myself then. I was freelance designer, had my own business, and it was just impossible. It was utterly impossible. And then everything, things just break down. And then it doesn't happen overnight. It's gradual. And then I think at some point I thought, when I'm not happy, my children don't see me looking happy. If I did sort of think, this is an awful admission, I did sort of think, if I drop dead, my daughter, her memory of me would be this really miserable person. That's the reality. And I said that to my husband, and it took quite a long, it took a long time for us to get to a better place for ourselves. Yeah. But that is part of the breakdown of a marriage. It's real. It's not easy. I mean, people would, I think, because I've just got this natural happy disposition, really. So I don't think anyone really knew. They didn't know. They didn't know. Many people that I only told a few people, and I don't think they really believed it. Even now they'll say, I would never have known that was what was going on. So we hide a lot. And that, what you're saying about, this illusion of parenthood, and it's meant to be, we're sold this image of perfection, and we all live in lovely houses and they're spotlessly clean. And, some of them are, and some of them aren't. But it's the same with marriage, isn't it? You're going to get married and life will be perfect. And to a degree it is, but there's always a balance. It doesn't mean say all marriages fail, but a lot of them do. You've got to have an honest, sense of reality, really.
And that's the thing, that good or bad is, we think, oh, well, it failed or it didn't last forever. Well, actually, maybe that's the success.
Yeah.
Maybe, but we think of, oh, that's good, that's bad. Like today, you could think of me as, oh, Chris is a great person. I could do one bad thing. I could do something, I don't know, drive into something, into a wall and do it, going over the speed limit. And then you could think, I can't believe I ever trusted Chris.
Yeah.
So I then go to the bad side. So do you know what I mean? It's how we judge good or bad instead of the overall picture.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. We're getting into some really cool concepts here, actually. I'm loving it. And so where does your journey go from there? Do you remain in fashion? What happens there? Obviously being divorced, does your life start to go in a different direction? And tell us a little bit more.
Yeah. So I then, so I get divorced. My youngest one, I've got 2 children. So my son is still in nappies. He also at that time had to have heart surgery, and my dad died. And then I got divorced, and we'd moved into a house. We'd bought a house, my ex-husband and I. We weren't in it for very long before our marriage just hit that wall. But basically the house was falling down. So we like to buy stuff that needed falling down. That was fine. My ex-husband loves to knock walls down, so we'd always demolish it internally and then start. And that's how I kind of was left with it, really. And my job, I had 2 really great contracts in fashion, but they just finished for various reasons. Industry changed, businesses, manufacturing was going overseas at that time. One of the companies, the people retired and closed the business. So I was just kind of, people were like, what are you going to do? And well, I keep being asked to teach yoga. I was doing teacher training with my teacher, and he'd suggested that I did teacher training. And I thought, absolutely no way. Why would I want to do that? It's just like, I like coming to classes, but I'm seriously not interested in becoming a yoga teacher. And at the time, nobody did yoga. No one did yoga, except really old people. It was, this contemporary yoga hadn't happened. It was like we were decades off that, really. So I sort of said, well, I keep being asked to teach yoga, so I'm just going to run with that for a bit. I was given an opportunity to teach retreats at weekends, which was, just a time where I went and slept. So I go along to these nice places, teach yoga classes, and just catch up on my sleep, and the rebalancing the stress of life, and get paid, which was needed. And it just kind of built up from there. I was one of 3 yoga teachers in Southwest London, and we literally we grew as the demand grew. And there wasn't any other people really, there weren't any other teachers. So we literally taught everybody and anybody. And then the company that I worked for, a big chain of gyms and health clubs, they sort of asked me if I would manage their recruitment and set up, formalize their, what we called holistic business at that time. So that was like yoga, Pilates, and therapists and other things that they offered. And they said, we'd like you to do that nationally, to sort of create a standard throughout the business, and to keep, to help the studio coordinators around the country recruit yoga teachers. Because at that time, again, there wasn't any formality. There were like 3 schools of yoga. There still are like 3 core ones. So it was just about explaining what those different organizations did and what to expect, what people would expect from classes. And they said to me, basically, how much do you want to earn? Because we don't know, this is a new job that we're creating. So how would you like to do it? And what would you like to earn? So I'm a big believer in stuff just happens. You sit there and go like, okay, well, I'd like to work part-time because I do want to take my children to school and back every day and have breakfast and tea with them. And this is how much it would make my life a lot easier if this is what I was paid. So there we go. And then it went up from there, because I then had this high profile job. So I was became a specialist. And I think it was also because, again, yoga was still quite new. So there wasn't many people who were prepared to kind of flog themselves, I guess. And I come from this fashion background and marketing and all of those things. So I could do all of that stuff for organizations, as well as, turn up and teach the classes. So I think
I often talk about manifesting things, and we do a workshop on it, and we talk about having a plan and life without a plan and the differences. And I think one of the things that you just talked about there is, if you put a plan together towards you doing that role when you was working in fashion, you would have never have started. You would have been like, no idea, the plan's not going to work, impossible. Yeah. But like, you knew what you wanted inside, and it kind of manifested. And then if it goes off the plan, you're very flexible. That actually, if it goes in a different direction, no problem. And even though you had 2 kids and you had the responsibility, because often, I don't know if you ever get this, we have this, oh yeah, but I've got bills to pay. Oh yeah, but I've got kids to look after. Yeah, everyone's got a responsibility. So I love it, the fact that you manifested that and did that. Just a really quick one. What is it about yoga that's so important, appealing, so powerful? What is it about yoga that really is for you, that represents and really connects you to it?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because it's a really difficult question to answer. I think I always say to people, yoga is probably the longest relationship I've ever had with anything. It's not a fad to me. I'm very much someone who likes to meditate and contemplate and sit with my feelings, and I can, I'm not afraid of my feelings. I think that that's been learned through a practice of yoga. When I talk about a practice of yoga, I always think of it as being something that is living. It's not about doing downward dog. It's not about a headstand. It's really not about the physical postures. They make you feel great, but all exercise makes you feel great. It's a time to sort of just connect to yourself. And not everybody will do that. That's just my journey. So I tend to say to people, I call it honest yoga. Not everybody likes that honesty, and they don't necessarily have to like my version of honesty either. There's a teacher out there for everybody. But for me, it keeps me grounded. I don't think you should necessarily follow the rules of I don't follow anyone's any particular style or ideology, because I think there's a lot of that in yoga, really. I think it should be yourself, really.
Yeah, not conforming and really take what you think's the best out of everything. I love that. And your journey starts to go in a different direction around the age of 50. Things started to go in a whole new way. Do you want to explain what happened, where things went, and kind of some of the difficulties as well? Because I know you had a little bit of a difficult time around then.
I'd forgotten about that. I was just dwelling about that lovely, the lovely past of how dreams became my reality. So I was coming up for 50. That's just the age that I was at, and I just literally opened the blinds of my bedroom and noticed that the person next door but one had sold their house very quickly at a time when it hadn't, property hadn't been moving for a long time. So this is about 9 years ago, and I thought, I'm just going to sell the house. It was that random. It's just like, I'm going to sell the house. The more I thought about it, the more it reconnected to me to my longer dream. Which, if I did have a dream, this was when it was going. This is it. Was always to travel, to be able to work remotely. I know now that that's a thing, but it wasn't then in the way that I wanted it to be. Wanted to sort of just cut back on everything, and I just asked myself that question: what do I want to do next with my life, and how can I make that happen? So it was like, I want to travel. My oldest one was heading off to university. There's a 5-year gap, so it wasn't going to be like the other one would follow soon. But I wanted more freedom. I just didn't want to work as hard as I did. I was tired, just doing the same thing. It's like it's any job really. It's not like I was tired. I felt stagnant, to be honest. I thought, I want to connect to my creativity. I don't have time to sort of do the things that I really love to do. I need time. I want time. So I saw, and I always thought this about the house. We've had this house that was falling down. There's, Victorian property in London, 3-bedroomed house, with a life in it. I'd been there for 17 years. It had my stuff from before 17 years. It had the stuff, my vinyl collection and my artwork that I'd carried with me since, that time at art school. And I just thought it's time to sell. And that was always going to be my thing. I knew that there would always be a significant amount of money, a lottery win really, because it's London, and I know how awful that sounds, but it's about cashing in my assets really and making a difference. So I just randomly put the house on the market and started looking around, looking at different things, and then I thought, I've always liked Streatham. I've always thought I'd like to live there. It seems like a nice place. I'm always happy when I'm there. And literally walked into this flat that I now own, and just thought, this is where I want to be. But at the time, it hadn't been cleaned for about 30 years. It was just horrible, just awful. Lovely building. It's a 1930s mansion block with a gorgeous garden. But it's not a house, so it was a significant downsize and had to be like cleaned, like not just, it had to be totally redone, electricity and everything. But again, I don't mind that kind of thing. I have no issue with renovations. And it was great. So it took a while to do. The downsize was massive. The decades of memories that had to get rid of from the shed and the cellar. There was like 3 generations of bikes, different age groups of like the tricycles to the stabilizers to the chopper bike, to all that stuff of childhood. There was 20 years of self-employed bookkeeping to be shredded because it had all just gone in the shed. It's just like, oh, that's a file, goes in the shed. All my tax accounts. It was really interesting looking back on that bit particularly, because it was like, oh my God, why did I ever worry? clearly I always had a job. I've never not had an income. But when you're working for yourself, that's what's in your head. You're going like, oh God, there's never enough money. So that was quite interesting. And then having to choose things to keep. So in this place, I've literally there's hardly any storage space, and I've had to whittle down the family memories to 3 shelves.
Not easy at all. Wow.
No,
Around that same time, sorry, Lisa, around that same time, I know that you made all these life changes, and then your brother, and then obviously your mother. So like difficulties within health and family and illness. Do you want to explain a little bit about once you made that change, everything else started to, and then your 2 best friends as well, I think, right? Started to really had a lot of struggles.
So we moved into this property in like the springtime, and it was great because it was filthy and dirty, and we just had like staff, and we kind of went a bit mad, and it was really fun just starting this new journey. And then, we get a call. We kind of have a saying in our family now, like when the landline rings before 9 o'clock, it's bad news. So we get a call, and my brother is in a coma in Spain. He was on holiday, and he had, I can't remember the numbers, but let's say 8 catatonic seizures. He was 11. It was 6'4". He's a really big, healthy bloke, and and then that you get that news, and then it was a brain tumor, and he was given 6 weeks to live, and he was in his 50s, early 50s. He had 2 children from his first marriage who were older, who were adults, are adults, and 2 younger children. The youngest one was 10 at the time, 9 or 10. So that, that's the bomb that drops, really, isn't it? That's because when you hear things like that, you question everything. You just, and then you try, you want to, for me, I want to be my best for everybody, but not everybody wants you to be, like everyone's got their own thing going on. Everyone is coping in so many different ways. Someone said to me after this time, there's nothing normal about a situation like that. So you just have to go with not normal. Nothing's normal. It's all chaotic. So he was given 6 weeks to live, but with treatment, they could extend his life for probably 18 months. I mean, I don't know what's worse, really. If because in that extended period, which he took, you're kind of just you're living with somebody dying, and you could argue we're all dying, which is often what I would say when, you go like, well, the guy's going to die. And like, yeah, but you get hit by a bus tomorrow, like, who knows, shit happens. But, that doesn't stop, the heaviness in your heart, the ache, the pain, the seeing what happens to everyone else. And then, I have to manage my kids in this as well. So my son was 15, and suddenly him and his sister were faced with this fact of reality that it could have been me, and they were then talking about what would happen to them and the choice. So these things, these events, they ricochet outwards, don't they? And they impact on so many different levels. So certainly, as a mother, as a parent, you're in that caring role of support. So. And that's easier in many ways. One of the easiest things about teaching is you can just put yourself to one side, and you can just be of service to everyone else, which is, that's a privilege, really. It's an absolute privilege. It doesn't necessarily do yourself any favors, because eventually you do have to have that conversation with yourself in there. So after my brother passed away, and all that goes with that, before, during, and after, within months, my mother was then diagnosed with lung cancer. And given, just a few months to live as well. So we were back on that. We were back in it again. Here we go again. And typical, as I said, growing up, it was, there was chaos, and a lot of fun and, you know, crazy upheavals. Well, in that period, she decided to move house. So, I mean, that was just atypical of my mother, you know, to just let's make a difficult situation more difficult and more intense. And we kind of thought, oh, well, yeah, let's just go along with it because it's what she wants, and it, you know, it gives us all something to do. So, but that, you know, where to even begin? So it was utter chaos, exhausting chaos. And then she passed away, and that's really the end of my family lineage. You know, that's all my, you know, I've got a smattering of distant cousins. Because my parents were kind of crazy and reckless, most of their friends died young, you know, because they all liked to party, really. So
How does that feel? And this is where your family lineage going, but also the fact that your mum's a real person, your brother's a real person. Like, how do you, as an adult, like, do you deal with it, especially having kids? Do you not show the emotion, or are you one of those people who kind of just has to show the emotion and not bury it? How did you deal with it?
I think I'm in that spectrum of coping. You know, I just get on with it. Everyone's different. For me, grief is exhausting. Every time someone in my life has died, I just seem to sleep it off. Really, just go to sleep. You know, and I sleep is a healer, but I don't say to myself, "Oh, I really need to sleep." This is like I can't do much else. And especially after my mum died, I then went into a period of depression, which I'd never experienced before. And when I realised that that's where I was, it was just like, oh my god, this is actually totally debilitating. I couldn't function. I couldn't handle money. It was the weirdest thing. I had no control over anything. So when I say couldn't handle money, I couldn't pay bills. I couldn't function. Just couldn't function. I mean, it didn't last long in the scheme of things, and you know, because because I'd done this big downsize and created a lot of wealth in that, I was able to just kick back. You know, I was able to give myself that time. You know, I'd created this time. I wanted the time to do other things with, but you know, it was an absolute luxury to be able to just go with it. I know that's not what most people can do.
Wow. I think it's something super powerful that you were able to do that. I've never heard anyone say they sleep it off. They like their body kind of sleeps and goes into sleep mode. But really, really, that's fascinating how you do that. But wow, thank you for sharing, by the way, because I know it's not always easy talking about such difficult moments. So I know for time and things, we're going through your journey. Like, where does your journey show you now? Where are you now? What is the life like for you, Lisa, now, and how are things?
Okay, well, they're lots better. You know, I'm happy, well, calm, balanced. I kind of think a return to self that happened quite a long time ago, really, in sense of the healing of and time. You know, time is a healer. So 2019, my younger one finally gets off to university, and I just go like, that's it, I'm off. I have to make this dream a reality. I have to walk my talk. So I bought a ticket to Havana. It was kind of impulsive. I decided to go for a month. And when I was getting off the plane, I did think, what have I done? This is just like crazy. It's not the first time I've done something reckless and daft and impulsive. So, you know, I thought, well, I'm here now. I just have to get on with it. So that trip was really interesting because I think when you travel by yourself, totally by yourself, not in a group with other people, like you're on your own, but you're with a group. When you're completely on your own, you have to you get to another level with yourself. You get to sort of be yourself in a way, because you haven't got your friends around, you haven't got your kids around, you haven't got the props, if you like, of identity. So you just have to be yourself. So I kind of, in that time, I just stayed in Havana for the month. I made lots of friends, and very connected to my nightclub times, when the music is amazing, the clubs are great. I met some artists. I started trading, helping a antique dealer sell his stuff. I just put it on Facebook and said to friends, because I just thought, I know lots of people would really like this artwork. Really, it was the artwork that I was selling. And I just said to people, if you want to buy it, I'll just buy it here and bring it back, and you give me the money when I get back. So I was then in this position of dishing out loads of cash to this guy in a market in Havana, and people seemed to think I was some big shot art dealer, which I'm not. I'm not at all. But it was really great, because it felt valuable. It felt like I'd come this way and all this way, and I could make a difference to people's lives. And I tried to support the artists and people there now. And I went back when that year, I went back towards the end of the year, and I took gifts, things that I knew that my friends liked, that they can't get, like Metallica t-shirts and Tupac t-shirts, and new things, really, things that I knew. And that was lovely, because it kind of made me feel I could just repay their generosity and kindness to me. And I traveled a lot that year. I was like everywhere and anywhere, and ran my own yoga retreats in Ibiza, and started to sort of level up the way that I wanted to work going forwards. And then we got to COVID, and of course that all stopped. And yeah.
Yeah, a tough time, right? A tough time for all of us, I guess, during COVID. Wow.
Yeah, but I just grounded myself and got on with other details. I did stuff like everybody else did, really, just adjusted accordingly. And now I'm looking forward to traveling again. I've got some trips planned for the end of the year. I've been improving my Spanish, so I'm looking forward to going to Spain at some point and, insulting them with my poor with my poor vocabulary. But you have to start somewhere. And my kids are thriving. They've equally had difficult COVID times, with their employment and university studies. The disruption for all of us is what it is. So it's really feels great being our world being open in whatever shape or form it is now.
Yeah, I love it. So Lisa, is it okay if we could do a quick fire round, some basically questions that I'm going to fire your way?
Yeah.
And you've got to answer them quickly. So I might start a sentence or with a word or half a sentence, and you have to finish it. If you want to explain a little bit about that, you're more than welcome to, but it is a quick fire round, so you have to do it in a quick way. So does that sound okay?
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
Right. So let's do this. Children are
great.
I love it. That's a good one. Not what you said at the start of parenthood, by the way.
My children.
Yeah, your children. Adulthood is about.
Ooh. Compromise.
Love that. Love that. Yoga can be
fun.
Life should be.
Oh, enjoyable.
I love that. Travel.
Always.
Always, whenever you can. Oh, I love that. That's a really good one. I love that one. Next question is a little bit different. If there was a law, a government law, at least Askem law, and basically it was your rule, everyone had to abide by it or had to follow it, what would that law be and why?
Okay. this is when I've said this before in company, and it never makes me popular, but hey, I think all education should be equal. All children should have the same education. So I would ban private education.
When you say ban private education, is that because, or would you be more trying to say the rest of everyone needs to be at the grade of private education?
Yeah.
So that actually there is no need for a private education because that is the standard that everyone should
we
be
should have a two-tier education system.
Yeah.
All, the only way everyone all that people can grow equally is to have an equal start.
Yeah, and I can see that point. I can see that point. And something that I really struggle with, actually, really interesting, is the government education system should be the best. That's the government education system. That should be the best for its people. How is it that it's not the best?
Well, when I heard the recent sort of policies around leveling up, I'd listened to that list and thought, isn't that what you're meant to be doing? That's your job. You're a politician. That's like I said about that inner anarchy in me. It's just like, I just want government to do my version of the right job, of course, so that the rest of us can just get on with actually thriving and being amazing humans. Because what else? To me, there's no other way. If humans are in charge, we want the best humans at the top. Oh, we want everyone to have a say in the world, have a voice. And you kind of
and so many of us are in survive mode and not thrive mode.
Yeah.
Like you just said, and there's so much to it, and we can go on to this all day. But if leaders can't connect to the people they are leading, there's a big problem, massive problem, and that is huge now, because we have leaders who do not have empathy for the people they are connected to and supposed to be leading. And we can go on all day about this, but we might have to do episode 2.
We might have to wrap that one up. Because So I think I would like equality. Real equality.
What a law! I love that law. I love that law. Well, the last 2 questions I ask every Tales to Inspire guest, Lisa, is the first question: what is your definition of the word inspire?
Ooh. Bit of a long pause there, isn't there? To be authentic, really, to find that, and to be able to, I think you don't need to be creative, but creativity does, literally draw out something that will be inspiring and can inspire other people, be it by words or actions. So I think that to be your authentic self, that's the only way you can be believable, really, isn't it? Trying to pretend to be something you're not.
Yeah, exactly. No, I love that, and that's sometimes really hard to do, being authentic, because sometimes it's really easy to lose yourself in the mud of life, I guess. It's so true. And the very final question I ask every Tales to Inspire guest. So, Lisa, if you were to live the best life you want to live, and ages away, right? Ages away, you're in your hundreds, okay, and you've lived it, and you're like, yes, I had the best one. And I'm looking back on your life, or you're looking back on your life, and you've lived the best life you want to live. What is the impact and the proudest things that you want to have achieved during that lifetime?
Oh, I would say, I'll say this today, and I don't think it would change at the end of my life, is that, like my children who are now adults do good work, care, that they give a shit about the world, and they take action to make it better for everyone. Yeah. That would be my legacy. It's them.
Yeah, I love that. That is true legacy as well. Really wanting them to do that, not forcing them, but like shaking them a little bit. I love it.
They are forced. No, they do. They get it, and for
Yeah.
that I'm grateful. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Lisa, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been so much fun.
What a pleasure. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's not often you get given a chance to talk about have a conversation with yourself really about your past journey. So and I also think that's really important for anyone and for everybody in it is a journey. That word is bandied about, especially in the yoga world of, we're all on a journey somewhere. Well, yeah, but you do have to look back to know where you're going. You have to sort of, I think the thing about yoga is it gives you that place to sit still and look around. So thank you.
How incredible is Lisa? Lisa shares so much of her journey, and I couldn't help but connect with everything that she said. She talks about really looking back to move forwards, reflecting and moving forwards. Yoga giving her that authentic self that she describes. Authenticity is beautiful. She talks about the legacy of her children and how each of us can do that. And actually, she talked about the responsibility towards this world that we live. She really wants to make a difference, and we all can make a difference. Just reveal ourselves to be the best versions of ourselves. Obviously, there's big difficulties with the government and leaders in society, and obviously, it's not always easy. Can we go from a state of survival to thriving? That's the question I'm going to be focusing on for the next week. Can I go from survive to thrive? And what makes me be the best version of me? Anyway, thank you so much for being part of this inspirational movement. If you'd like to donate or be part of this movement, you can via Patreon, where you can become a patron guest, which is as little as £2 a month at Tales to Inspire. If you type that in on patreon.com, you'll find out all about that. And thank you for being part of this movement, as always. Remember never to stop inspiring that person in the mirror. Take care.